Hello again, artists. Today we're going to take a little tour of the sewing machine. Now yours may look different than mine, and that's just because there's different brands of sewing machine. They all do the same job, and they all work pretty much the same. I want to show you mine because it's easy to thread, easy to work, and it just makes sewing so much more fun. Now, I learned to sew on my mother's sewing machine, which was really, really old. I think it was older than me. And it was a little bit difficult because it didn't have some of the easy things that they put on sewing machines now. So hopefully you have a machine that you're really going to love to use. And I'm going to go over some of the basic things you're going to find on every single sewing machine. First of all, there's going to be a power cord. It'll plug in usually at the side, and you can plug it into a wall outlet. Most sewing machines have a power switch, and that's located right beside the power cord, and you can turn that on. Luckily, I have a light that comes on with mine so I can see right down where I'm going to be sewing, and I love that. Mine has some computerized directions, but yours may have something printed right on your machine. What you're looking for is something that says straight or that looks like one of these. It's just a straight stitch. It's not going zigzag. It's not doing any of these other things. It's just a straight stitch. Now you can choose to have it over to the left, which is just a couple of millimeters difference. I like mine right in the middle, so I can select that. Now you may have like a little dial or a little wheel up here that lets you turn. Sometimes you have a wheel over here on the side that gives you stitch selections over here. But that's how you're going to choose what stitch you want. Mine automatically adjusts the tension for me, so I don't have to worry about that. You may have to do your tension dials, and a lot of times your manual will just tell you what they should be. Sometimes it's even on your machine that if you want a straight stitch, you're going to select maybe A or 0 or whatever it might be up here. So take some time to figure that out, because once you get it set up for that straight stitch, it's going to do everything you want it to do. Now, the other thing that you have on your sewing machine is going to be the hand wheel. And you can turn that up and down, and you'll notice when you turn it, the needle in your machine is going to go up and down. That's what does your sewing for you. Now, technically, you could turn the hand wheel and make every single stitch in your project, but that will take forever. So you either have a push button start like I do, or you might have a foot pedal that is down below and you can press it with your foot, just like the gas pedal in a car, and it'll make your needle go up and down faster and faster. That's how you make it go. You give it the gas. Now, before you can get started with sewing, you do have to have your stitch selected, and you have to have your needle threaded. That's what all of this is about. Everything in here is going to hang on to your thread and keep the tension so that it sews straight down evenly every time. If we didn't do this part, it would just be all over the place and your fabric wouldn't go together. So we don't want that. So let's take a look at threading the machine. And I'm going to start with just some basic white thread. You probably have a thread holder somewhere on your machine. I have a big one down there for me because I have a big spool. But you're going to lay your thread across the top of your machine, and you usually have some directions, a little bit of a guide that will tell you which way your thread needs to go. Mine has to go into this little valley, and see, printed right on my machine, it says loop it up. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go up to the top and back down again. You might even see way inside of there. It's the little hook that holds your thread. Look how it caught my thread. That's fantastic. And then I'm going to take my thread all the way down. Now it's time to thread my needle. I'm going to take my thread down. I have a little hook here that keeps the thread even closer to the needle for me. I love that. Now, I could poke this thread through the needle and that would be threaded, and that's fine. But if you're lucky, you have an automatic needle threader. I have a little lever on the side of my machine, and when I push it down, this comes down and threads my needle for me. So I'm going to let the thread get caught on this hook. It's going to press down and come all the way across to my needle. And when I hold the thread across and let go of the lever, it's going to pull the thread right through the needle. See that little loop? Now I can grab the loop and pull it all the way through the needle. And I like to tuck it into this little groove in my presser foot and send it to the back, just so it doesn't get loose and out of place. Speaking of presser foot, that's what this little guy is. There's a lever on your machine that makes him go down and up. Every time that you're sewing, you want your presser foot to go down. That's going to keep your fabric nice and tight so that it can sew it together. When you're not using the machine, your presser foot should be up. That'll keep it from getting knocked around. Now you may have noticed that you have a second area to thread. This is called the bobbin thread. Now my machine is what they call a top loading bobbin, and I can use these little plastic circles. That's a plastic bobbin. I wind the bobbin on the machine. There's actually a spot up top, and we'll do that another time. But when you have your bobbin wound and ready to go, I keep a hold of the end of that thread, and I always look at it like the letter P. My thread is coming down here and making a circle like the letter P, and I'm going to pop it into my bobbin case just like that. Now I even have little directions etched into my machine that tell me where the thread has to go. It's got to go around this little hook, and I'm just going to follow the trail all the way to the end. And now my thread is captured and ready to go. And I just put the cover right back on top and snap it in. Now some people have a bobbin case inside the machine and you get to the front of it. Another time I'll show you a machine that does that, and we can look at that kind of a bobbin case, because if you're going to have any problems with your machine, that's where it's going to be, is in your bobbin tension. But the top loading is very easy to do. My thread is ready in the bobbin. My thread is ready on my needle. I've chosen which stitch I'm going to do, and all I need to do now is test it out. I've got a little scrap of fabric that I folded over, just like that. I'm going to place it under my presser foot, lower the presser foot. I'm going to go over to my hand wheel and spin it just very slowly and a little bit so that the needle is down. Everything is held and ready to go. Now I'm going to press start on my machine. And it's sewing. And I can press stop so I can check how my stitches are looking. Pretty good. Now let's talk about how to get it out of the machine. if I'm going along, and I'm going to sew slower now, I can see very slowly that the machine is pulling the fabric a teeny tiny millimeter at a time. That's every stitch going up and down. It's moving the fabric forward. I don't put my fingers up here. They stay back here where it's safe. I would never put my fingers up where the needle is going up and down because that could hurt me really badly. But I keep them back here and I just let my eyes watch. And when I get close to the end, I can stop. Now, somewhere on your machine, you have a reverse stitch. Let's see, mine is right here. When I press reverse, it took a back stitch. Let's try it again. Now it's going backwards every time I touch that button. Now your machine might have a lever. Sometimes it's a little lever over here you press down and hold to make it sew backwards. Sometimes there's a little lever around here that you press and hold and it will sew backwards. It all does the same thing. It doesn't matter how it does it. But by sewing backwards, I'm securing that stitch. It's not going to go anywhere. When I don't press the button or you let go of the lever and you start up again, either with your pedal, with your foot, or with your push button, your machine will go forward again and stop. Now, my machine's kind of fancy, so I have an automatic thread cutter. This button right here, if I push it, it will cut the thread for me at my needle and I can take my fabric out. But I'm going to show you how to do that if you don't have a thread cutter. What you're going to want to do first is raise your presser foot. Now, if I were sewing, I don't know, maybe a square, and I wanted to keep sewing, do you see how I could turn my fabric around? And I could keep going without ever cutting my thread. That's pretty great. But if I'm ready to cut my thread, first of all, I'm going to go to my hand wheel. Remember, the hand wheel is over here, and I'm going to turn it until that needle goes all the way up. See it go up? Now I can use this lever and pull my presser foot up. And just like that, my fabric is free, except for the little threads that are holding it together. See those threads? You can see the bobbin thread and the top thread. That created the stitching that held my fabric together, but it's also keeping my fabric stuck to the machine. So I want to cut those threads off. But I don't want to cut them right here because it might come unthreaded. It doesn't have a long enough tail. So I'm going to pull that up away from the machine. I can have a nice long tail. Now, you might have a thread cutter on the side of your machine, like this one. It's just a little tiny, kind of like a little razor right in there. And you can loop the threads over and cut it off. But if you don't have any of that, it doesn't matter. You can just take some scissors and cut those threads. And now you can examine your work. I can see that mine's a little bit puckery, and that means that my tension is too tight. So I'm going to make my tension a little bit lighter, and then it won't be quite so puckering on my fabric. But that's why it's always good to have a little scrap piece of fabric to sew so you can test out your stitch. Now let's do this again, but this time we're going to pretend that we are sewing our actual project. And I want you to pay attention to the side of your fabric. This is exactly where your eye needs to be. I line up my fabric with the edge of my presser foot. I'm going to lower my presser foot so it's captured the fabric. And then while I'm sewing, I'm going to keep my eye on the fabric to keep it lined up with this side. That's going to give me a nice even seam allowance. This is the distance between your stitches and the raw edge of your fabric, and you want that to be the same so all your measurements come out the same. Keep your fingers back out of the way. I kind of use that silver part as a guide. That's my boundary. I'm not going to put my fingers up in here where they could get stabbed with the needle, but I'm going to keep them down here because I can hold my fabric. I can keep a hold of that and it's fine. So I've got my presser foot down. I've lined up my fabric with the edge of the presser foot and I'm ready to start sewing. And as it's moving the fabric through the machine, I'm watching this right side where the presser foot and the edge of the fabric. It should be feeding it right along the edge. This is a great time to practice if you're using a pedal so that you can practice going slow, medium, and fast. You really don't want to do fast, but if you can get slow to just under medium speed with your foot, then you'll be really happy with your sewing. Right now I'm in super slow mode. I'm going to speed up just a little bit. Still watching the edge. Now as I get to the end, I'm going to slow down, keeping my fingers out of the way. I'm going to stop. I'm going to reverse. I'm going to reverse again just to be safe. Then I'm going to raise my needle up. I'm going to cut my thread, raise my presser foot, and my fabric is free. Now those stitches came out much nicer. See how nice and flat my fabric is looking compared to the first time I did it? That's great. Okay. All right. I think that's good. We've got our sample done and we have done a great job. So keep practicing with your machine, figure out all the ins and outs of it, and keep having fun.